Hey guys, before we get into today's episode, I just want to remind you that we are going to be doing a breakout session for BDOs at the Mid Americas Lenders Conference in Houston, Texas on April 15th, my son's birthday. If you want to level up your game in 2025, come see us live in person at MALC. The link to register is in the show notes, and we will see you there.
Warning: the views and opinions expressed in this program are our own and/or those of our guests. They do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of our employers. Viewers' discretion is advised.
What do you think makes a brand a good candidate for SBA financing?
And that's the mark of a good franchise.
You do have to be careful about that type of stuff when you get into franchises. All right, so are certain industries more prone to franchise success or failure? Let's hear about that from you, Alan. What do you think about the different industries that you see?
When it comes to franchises, I always think about
Because that's one thing I do want to kind of harp on for anybody out there who's looking at, being a franchisee one day is that the Mid American Lenders Conference is going to be a banger. Okay,
It's gonna be a banger.
I'm not telling anybody whether or not I'm actually going to show up. I'm just going to either be there or not be there, and you're going to have to deal with it. And if I am there, I'll be with the Peanut Butter Prince himself because it'll be his second birthday. So we'll have to see if we can make that all work. But maybe I'll see you, maybe I won't.
Okay, BDOs, it's story time. And no, I am not talking about the time Sterling tried to finance a zoo. You'll have to go back to episode 3 for that. I'm talking about the story that your borrower has in their head, and they may need that extra boost to finally get it onto paper. Rapid Business Plans is a known and trusted partner that can help them do just that. Whether your borrowers are working towards acquiring a business, starting one up, or expanding and making moves, within just a few short days, Rapid Business Plans will deliver powerful, fast, SBA and USDA ready business plans with projections and assumptions. If they need an export business plan for an ITL loan or a feasibility study, they have you covered there too. We know this process is not a walk in the park, or should I say zoo. Let the Rapid Business Plans team take some of the wild out of the process so that your borrower's vision and passions can come to life. For more information or to get acquainted, email Bethany McClellan at bethany@rapidbusinessplans.com or click the link in the show notes.
All right. So today, obviously, we are missing Emily. She is not here. I don't know what she's doing, but probably more important than hanging out with us, apparently. We're missing her. We're missing Chris Hackney. Obviously, thoughts and prayers. With that being said, we are going to be talking about franchises today. And I figured I'd be the perfect person to host this because I do happen to own 2 franchises. So
how many?
it just makes sense. 2 franchises. Not one, but 2 franchises I currently own.
Perfect.
I own a 2 Maids and a Mop franchise, and I own a glow tanning salon franchise as well. So we're going to talk all about franchising today. So maybe some emerging brands, what makes sense in terms of what the SBA is looking for to get you approved if you want to be a franchisee. And so I'm going to go ahead and kick this off to Kroge because in his past life, he worked for a bank that did a lot of franchise loans. He is no longer the franchise guy, but what do you think makes a brand a good candidate for SBA financing?
I'll start with the franchise itself. So I was very picky with franchises, and I'll give you my recent rationale why. So just to start up, I look at a franchise that has no less than 50 doors open and operational in the last 2 years. So for 2 years straight, they have to have 50 doors open and operational for 2 years.
2 years. Wow.
The main reason is because it gives consistency. All right. The reason why your buyers go and utilize a franchise is because they've got a process, they've got a proven track record, and they've got consistent financials. All right. Those 3 things are the reason why they go with them. And that's what a franchise is supposed to do. All right. Back in 2013, 2014, we started seeing the emergence of these boutique franchises. Everybody was going to be a franchise, right? Everyone who had any idea anywhere in the country, they were going to franchise it. They were going to bottle it up, and then they were going to sell it to everybody.
They had 1 unit.
1 unit, right? They had 1 unit that was doing good, and they were going to set the world on fire. And the reason why these business owners got this idea to franchise was because franchisors moved away from their build it and they will come model to strictly a marketing model, right? You started getting all these marketing companies coming in and selling franchisors on, hey, we will bring you the clientele. Let us take over your PR, your public relations, and we will bring you the clientele and let you just start stacking paper on franchise fees. So that's what the model became. You started getting these boutique franchises out there and these juggernaut marketing companies selling business owners on, you need to be in a franchise. Franchises are this, that, and the other thing, and we'll blow you up. We'll support you. We'll have this and that. The marketing company was getting a cut of every franchise, right? So every franchise fee. Their motivation was to close the deal. Their motivation was that they don't care if they were sustainable. They didn't care if they did very well. They just wanted to collect that franchise fee. Well, that worked for about 10 years, about 5 years, right? From about 2013, 14 to 18 and 19. And then they just started failing. And then when COVID came, they started failing at a more rapid pace. And the franchises that weathered the storm of COVID are the ones that were 50 doors or more prior to this boutique explosion. So I'm very biased when it comes to franchises. I will not even consider a borrower with doors less than 50. And then I got to look at that item 19. Item 19 is crucially important. That's what's going to give you and that's in the franchise document disclosure, I should say. That's going to give you detail on their highest producing store, their lowest producing store, and then the average production of their store. And it'll give you a really good idea. What you want to see is you want to see that average and that gap between the highest and lowest really, really thin. You want to see, because they'll have so many doors open, it'll be so thin right there that gives you an idea of the viability of that franchise, the solidity that that franchise has, the propensity to continue on and make money consistently year after year. My favorite franchise to finance, bar none, is Jimmy John's. Jimmy John's
Oh, okay.
was the best, and I probably did about 12 one year back in, I think it was 2012, 2013, and they had a less than 1% failure rate. And that's across the whole entire franchise. I never had one of those franchises go bad. Matter of fact, I had more Jimmy John's franchisees come back to me after 1 year saying, "Hey, I have to open up another. I didn't buy a bundle. I only bought one, but I'm making so much money. I have to buy another." And that's the mark of a good franchise. A good franchise or is that they've got consistency. Everybody loves Jimmy John's. I love Jimmy John's better than that other sandwich shop that has the green and yellow, monitoring.
The spokesman that we don't talk about anymore.
That's right.
Yikes.
I prefer Jimmy John's, and I know a lot of people out there prefer Jimmy John's because their consistency and they have a proven track record. So that's kind of my 2 cents on the franchise ors.
I went to a drive-through Jimmy John's on Saturday in Tallahassee, Florida, where Bethany and Ross McClellan from Rapid Business Plans were celebrating. They got honored in the Seminole 100 for the third year in a row.
Congratulations to them. They're a supporter of this program.
Yeah, they are. So congratulations. Check out Rapid. Ross was right. But I got to go, dude, they had a drive-through window. My wife's like, she's like, "You want food?" I'm like, "Yeah." And of course, I'm not high maintenance at all, especially when I'm riding a hangover from when you guys were in town for my birthday. Did I say that out loud?
Right.
Anyway, so I'm like, "I don't want a hamburger." Like an oasis on the highway in an otherwise barren, desolate land on the highway. We see Jimmy John's, the big sign that says drive-through. Bro, I gotta talk about freaky fast. I'm with you. I'm with you when it comes to Jimmy John's. They still got a great product with that. Forget about that other place with the good cookies and the sketchy spokesman. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Let me ask you this though. I mean, have you had luck where you have somebody, looking at what would be, let's call it an emerging brand, right? I'm not talking about a one-off as you were, but let's say they're under 50, but they're over 25, just for the sake of spitballing here.
That's actually a
But
really
you
good
have
range, Al.
Yeah, and if you have somebody there that maybe has adjacent direct experience, would you consider taking a shot on that one? Like, let's say someone is like, "Listen, I've
Absolutely.
been," yeah,
Yeah.
if it's something like that where they have some franchise support, but they have the wherewithal that they could have survived under, you know, their
Right.
own accord. I mean, that's worth taking a crack at, I
That's
think. I
that's
mean, would you guys
very
agree?
worth taking a crack at, but those are very few and far between because
They are.
normally
They're rare. Yeah.
very rare. Because normally if somebody has the experience, they have the background to I like sticking with sandwiches, right? Let's stick with sandwiches. To run a
Dude, I'm
sandwich
starving.
shop,
Keep going.
they will do their own, right? Why pay the
Yeah.
franchise fees and the ongoing royalties when you've got enough experience and background to do your own in a startup, right? To say I won't do a franchise with between 20 and 50 doors is I'll take a look at it and I'll consider it, but like you said, Al, it's got to be a whole strong package altogether.
This a borrower matters way more, right? Because you don't have the historic performance to rely on franchise support. You need to quantify the deal somehow because that is, after all, the spirit of the program.
It is.
Absolutely. And we have the 50 doors rule here too at Bay First. I'm actually of the opinion that 50 doors is decently high. I would feel more comfortable taking a risk on a deal that maybe has 25 units or so. I definitely don't think I'd want to go below that, but especially as somebody now who owns and operates a couple of franchises, 25 locations is no joke. I mean, if you have 25 locations and they're actually successful in cash flowing, in my mind, you've proven your business model. There's not that much of a difference between you getting to 25 and getting to 50. It's just how many more people can you get signed up that agree to do it and actually can get open and operational. I can tell you it's a lot more difficult when you can't get SBA financing, right? So there's not a lot of banks who are playing in that below 50 unit space. There are some out there, and they're probably getting some good deals. They're also probably getting some bad deals. There's obviously risk that's involved on both sides of it. But I think that what you really want to stay away from as both a franchisee and also as a lender is anything that has less than 10 units. I mean, like, come on, less than 5 units.
What are you paying the franchise fee for? Why are you paying $50,000, $60,000?
Yeah.
Open it yourself.
I'm with you.
And I've been lucky in my career to, have a lot of deals go the right way. I can count the number of deals that have gone the wrong way or gone bad on one hand. And then, that's saying something, having, done quite a bit of volume over the last, almost 10 years that I've been in lending. And, one of the only one that I really like took a big loss on, or the bank took a somewhat big loss on. And actually we ended up having to go to court. I had to testify in open court because the guy countersued us. It was
Oh, I
it was a
remember you telling me
nightmare.
the story, dude.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was a
crazy.
super
It was a deal that
stressful
we did because,
situation.
yeah, we did this deal for this guy based on, him being high character, having outside income from a very reputable tech company. We thought, and the loan amount was small, thank God. It was, $250,000 loan. And it was for, a startup vitamin shop. And, this is one of those situations where it was a franchise, but the franchise only had locations in one specific city. And it was, a very big city. That's probably the greatest city on earth. Okay. Where, there's a lot of people running around that can support a boutique compound pharmacy. That's essentially, it's like a GNC slash compound pharmacy place. And you can support that in certain cities. But Brandon wasn't that city. It wasn't it wasn't the right place for that particular brand, and so unfortunately, it just never really took off. Right, and and then you look at the franchise. You look at the franchise, and you're like, well, what support are you actually providing this guy? Because he's basically almost down here like doing guerrilla marketing for you. He's in a reputable mall, on a major corridor here, and then when people actually come into the store, they look at stuff. Maybe they don't buy that day, but then they go online and they buy from your website, and he gets zero. He gets none of that. It all goes back to the mothership. And so he only gets what he can sell out of his brick and mortar location. And so, I mean, he never made money, And so, unfortunately, that's what you do have to be careful about that type of stuff when you get into franchises,
Right.
because they're not all created equal. And number two, I mean, even sometimes you can get into what was a good franchise model and a good franchise system. And sometimes the leadership may start changing some things, and all of a sudden it ain't so good anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And Subway is like the perfect example of that. Subway was a fantastic franchise 15 or 20 years ago. And now the Subway franchisees are struggling, and they've been struggling for a long time because Subway corporate did not really seem to care too much about cannibalization. They didn't really seem to care too much about putting a Subway that another franchisee owned across the street from you.
There's one in every gas station in America these days. You can't turn around without seeing
There was a
Subway.
Subway on every block,
Yeah.
right? And then meanwhile, also the food quality standards slipped over
Big time.
time
Yep.
because good food does cost money,
Right.
but you want to sell for $5.
Right.
So if you want to see the $5 foot longer, that's what you're pressing, right? And if the cost of food is going up, you have to buy less quality food over time to be able to still service that same segment of the market. Meanwhile, the Jimmy Johns of the world are competing based on speed, not on price. And then you have, places like Firehouse and all these places stuff that actually have
Jersey Mike's.
real legitimate
Jersey
Mike's that have
Jersey
like
Mike's
real
is great.
legitimate
Yeah.
quality, right? And so
Mhm.
what seemed like a great investment, and trust me, they had way more than 50 units, probably had 5,000 units at one point, all of a sudden did not look like a great investment anymore. So as was mentioned, that item 19 is your friends. Take a look at that,
Mhm.
see what the failure rate is for that franchise. That will tell you a lot. How many of those franchises are closing up.
I'm going to tell on myself here that section 19, I didn't look at it well enough. All right. I can be transparent and honest here. It's not all about holding rate war stories. The fact is, I looked at a deal. The gentleman had a great PFS, family business, father son coming into it. I thought he had good experience and all this. He gives me his projections, and it was based on car count and all this stuff and this narrative. And I thought it was great. And I didn't dig deep enough into the franchise disclosure document. And a credit team lead, let's just call him for the sake of conversation, Clay, says to me, "Hey, I see what you're doing. I like them. I like the story. For it to work, they got to hit this projection number." And I go, "No, I know, but based on car count, and they're by a red light, and and he's like, dude, the FDD shows that they're going to blow out the top performing location ever, right? By like $150,000 on a brand new location with a guy who doesn't currently own and operate in that location." To which I had to humbly say, "My bad, y'all." And we rocked that one back because he was trying, but he's like, "Bro, did you look at that?" I'm like, No.
Well,
I
but
didn't.
this is case in point too, Al. This is really
Yeah.
important because a good franchisor is going to sit with the franchisee, go through their business plan, go through the projections, go through their budget, make sure everything is airtight to present to the lender. And obviously, in this case, he did it, right? He went rogue, did it all on his own, said, "I know better than a franchisor." But can I give a quick story? We've got a lot of
Yeah.
Michigan.
You got to break the readers out, big dog.
Got the readers. Oh, I don't have. I'm not
On your
sitting in
nose.
front of my.
You got get
I'm
break
not
the
sitting
readers
in
out and
front
get
of
that book.
my bookcase. But I can break the readers out and say, can we start a new
It's
segment?
story time with Grandpa Kroge. It's a new segment that we
A
started.
new segment, story time with Grandpa Kroge. So we do have a lot of very successful franchises that were started here in the great state of Michigan. One that I would like to talk about is a good friend of mine and very, very successful entrepreneur by the name of Happy Asker. Happy started a franchise called Happy's Pizza. And he started this about 20 years ago, I want to say it was. And he started as just a location on universities, right? He had one at University of Michigan, one at Michigan State. But this is how, as a franchisor, he scaled up. He would get operators that would share ownership with him. So he still had a piece of every single location, 50 to 60%, sometimes more, sometimes less, depend on the operator. And Happy would grow his enterprise. He had about 12 locations when I was first introduced to him. And he had plans to just scale them all the way up, right? Well, at the time, I think the SBA had just bumped from 2 million to 5 million. So we started scaling and we started growing. And I think we got to about 26 locations. And then it just blew up from there. Once he hit about 26 locations, he kind of looked and said, "I don't need to have ownership anymore. I understand this. I need to build a team. I need to do this." And I say this to go back to your comment earlier, Sterling. At 25 units, I agree with you. You have a system, you have a process, you know what you're doing. But from 25 to 50, that's where you prove if this franchise is really scalable or not. When you double from 25 to 50, You have proven that you've put a system in place, you put people in place, and you've got a headquarters and you've got an army ready to support 50 doors. And that's what he did. He stepped back and he put an army in place and he grew. He's got, I want to say, close to 1,000 locations now across the entire country. And he recently started a new franchise. I'm gonna give him a plug, Happy. This is for you. He recently started a new franchise called Savvy Sliders. So Happy's Pizza was obviously pizza, chicken, and ribs, and he just started Happy Sliders. I've got one right here in downtown Rochester. Food is absolutely fantastic, and he's still looking for franchisees to scale it up. But he's proven himself. It's a sister company under the same umbrella to Happy's, and so he's got a process. He's got people put together, and he came back to me and said, "Ryan, let's start building this franchise back up." So I'm back into the mix again with some looking at 2 transactions down in Florida. I'm not in the Tampa area yet, in Orlando and Miami. So you'll be getting some savvy sliders down there. But he's growing at a rapid pace. But it's because he's proven it, and that was the way he was able to scale up the franchise by having some ownership, which he has sold out of now for obvious reasons. But he was able to feel and kind of be boots on the ground until he got to 25 units and then blow it up. So big shout out to Happy. He did it the right way.
Between 25 and 50 units is where you really see the franchisor has to really build out a team internally to be able to support that many franchisees. And if you don't put the time and effort into actually building a franchise or team, then you eventually franchisees will start to fall off because not everybody is built to really truly be an independent entrepreneur. They're there for a franchise support for a reason. And if you don't actually have the controls in place, then yes, there could certainly be some issues even after 25 doors. Because 25 doors, you can still almost run it all like corporate stores.
Right.
But when you get to 50, yeah, no, you really need some systems and processes in place at that point. So, all right. So, are certain industries more prone to franchise success or failure? Let's hear about that from you, Alan. What do you think about the different industries that you see?
Hey guys, we have a special announcement for anybody involved in M&A transactions. Our partner, Peak Business Valuation, have put together a resource just for BDO Show listeners, and they're giving it away for free. It lists out the rule of thumb formulas, or as Kroge would like to say, the down and dirty, for some of the most common industries that SBA lenders finance. I promise you it's going to come in handy. Kroge's literally still using the one he got from Nagel in 2002. By the way, if you're not thinking about evaluation at the pre-screen phase, you are missing the boat. A lot of BDOs tend to focus on the debt service coverage and they're missing the valuation completely. That's a rookie move and it will become a problem. As a consultative BDO, you should have a sense of whether the business is going to value out. And Peak's handy dandy rule of thumb is here to help. Go to peakbizval.com/BDO show to get yours today.
When I think about franchises, I always think about QSRs. I just do. When I think about quick service restaurants,
Yeah.
that's like
That's
my
it,
go-to.
man.
I know, dude, I know what to expect. And listen,
That's right.
there are other great franchises that I am a customer of. I do have an annual membership with Glow Tanning, as you can tell. I'm overdue to get in the booth.
Looking
Next
good.
time you
But
come down, Ryan, we're gonna get you some. We're gonna get you glowed up, baby.
Hey, I
We gotta
came
get you
down.
glowed up.
I spent 3 days in Florida, and look at me. Look at how beautifully tan I am, and that's just from the beautiful Florida sun, man. I'm
And
feeling
that was
good.
from inside a meat
That's from the
market.
neon lights inside the restaurant we were hanging at.
That was from that hairspray tomahawk
the
steak at meat
hairspray
market.
tomahawk steak.
No, I think of quick service restaurants, dude, because if you get that consistency, and as a consumer, I know what I'm getting when I go to Culver's, right? They're wildly popular down here. They hail from Wisconsin, just like Jake Stone. And it's like, you can figure out the menu, the pricing might change depending on the area, but you know what
Right.
you're getting, and that consistency of the big ones. I'm always thinking of QSRs, but I've seen lately some companies, just like everybody in the world, trying to get in the home services space. Like, hey, I want to do a franchise electrical contractor. And I
Hmm.
haven't had much success with those, but I'm aware of those. I think that when it comes to franchises, I always think about quick serve restaurants and fast food personally. I mean, don't you guys?
I think of quick service restaurants and I think of fitness. Well,
Yeah.
I think of
Oh, that's a good
fitness
point
too.
too.
And I
True.
think
Yeah.
so fitness is on like two different spectrums here. So I had a customer that rapidly outgrew me back in the mid-teens. He opened a whole bunch of Planet Fitnesses. And man,
Mm,
those places made
those did
bank.
great.
Crushed
Planet
out.
Fitness does really well
Oh my
actually, and
goodness.
it's because they're not just the gym; they also have the tanning in there.
Right.
So they're
Yep.
actually one of the biggest competitors for Glow as well as actually
Oh yeah.
as Planet Fitness. And so there was a guy down here who recently sold like 50 of them for a big
That
number.
Oh, I'm
franchisor,
sure.
their plan was we're going to go into retail strip centers where there's an anchor, and then we're going to become the anchor after we're established. And that's what they did. You look at retail strip centers, Planet Fitness is an anchor now. They were not considered an anchor when they went in, but they are now. And they do very, very well.
They prey on laziness, and this isn't going to be a joke about
They do.
how they have pizza parties, which is why I'm a member. I mean, for $10 a month, all I can eat pizza every Wednesday. I'm winning. It's interesting because they do the reoccurring revenue model. The membership price point of $9.99 is low enough where you just put it off till next month, but
Yep.
it's high enough that it accumulates into real money when you look at
Right.
how many
Yeah.
members they really have.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
admire that. I think it's genius.
Yeah, 50% of people don't use subscriptions that they actually pay for. That's just the truth. Is that even I see it with Glow, right? We're also subscription based. 69.99 is the subscription that we're pushing. If you had all everybody come in on the same day, I mean, it would be impossible, right? It'd be a run on the bank. But in reality, what happens is, maybe 100 people come in every couple of days or so over the course of a couple of days. But then most people you just don't you see them maybe once every 3 weeks, once every month, and then some people you don't see at all. But the news is that like a lot of them just keep paying. They just, they just and even if they do cancel, they usually cancel months after they stopped using the service. When they're eventually like, oh, I need to finally get rid of that. Maybe one day they'll finally do it, but oftentimes you've already auto drafted them several times without them using the service before they even decide to cancel.
We've been paying on Hand and Stone for 2 years, which was a Mother's Day gift for my wife, Jennifer, who doesn't have time to go generally, but we don't want to cancel it just in case. So shout out to Hand and Stone. I'm paying you on time, and I probably will continue to because it's easier than dealing with, hey, I'm pulling the plug on that massage subscription I got you. I prefer not to sleep on my own couch. So
Good for
things
you.
are going well for Hand
That's
and
smart.
Stone for me.
Yeah, what was that? Hand and Stone, Massage Envy, and Green Massage or something like that. They're the three big competitors in the massage industry. Yeah.
They all do pretty well. I'm pretty sure they do well from my understanding. I mean, the one in Tampa's, they're busy, but a lot of things are kind of busy around there. It's right by West Shore there by the mall.
One of the service-based franchises I've always heard performs very well is ServPro. So
Yeah.
basically, that's restoration. If you had a flood, if you have a fire, anything like that inside of a building structure, ServPro comes in and they basically do the demo work. They get everything cleaned up so you can do the rebuild. I've always heard that those do extremely well. So yeah, I think QSR obviously is what most people think of when they think of a franchise because they think of Taco Bell, Chick-fil-A, McDonald's, and those are great franchises, by the way. Like if you can get into those big established franchises, obviously there's a much higher barrier to entry, but there's a reason for that. Because obviously the return is usually greater and there's less risk of your capital. But there's a lower rung of franchises out there that I think are still really good in that service-based space. There's plenty of HVAC franchises out there that perform very well. ServPro, which I just mentioned, is out there. Plumbing franchises. A lot of those blue collar franchises out there can still do really, really well. If you're somebody who's willing to be more of an owner operator type, especially, and kind of roll up your sleeves and get into it. So that's because that's one thing I do want to kind of harp on for anybody out there who's looking at, being a franchisee one day, is that you really need to be willing to work in your business or have somebody who's a partner ideally work in your business if you really want it to be successful. Like if you really want it to be a top performing franchise that's in that highest percentile of performing stores, somebody who's in ownership needs to be working there. Otherwise, if it's purely a passive investment, if it's purely like, oh, we hire a manager and she kind of does this whole thing for us, take it from me as experience. I've done it both ways, right? It's never going to be the same as if when somebody who's an owner is there in the driver's seat every day.
Yeah.
Somebody has to really roll their sleeves up and work that business. And you got to realize that what you are buying oftentimes when you buy a franchise is a job. You're basically buying the ability to be the CEO of your own company, right? But the expectation for the franchisor is that you're going to be there. And that should be your expectation as well. Once you grow to a certain scale, maybe there is some potential to replace yourself, but I can guarantee you that scale is far away from 1 unit. It's probably somewhere around 10 units for most franchise systems where you'd be able to say, hey, I'm going to hire somebody to essentially replace me. And odds are you may honestly never be replaced. So you just have to know what you're getting yourself into when you get into franchising, because it is not passive income. There's no such thing, guys. Take it from an entrepreneur. There is no such thing as passive income.
No such thing. When owning a business, there's no such thing as passive income, and that's not just for franchises, right? A lot of people, but to your point, Sterling, a lot of people try to get into franchises because they want that passive income from a business, but that just doesn't exist in our world. In lending in businesses, when we talk to potential entrepreneurs, potential CEOs of a company, you got to be in there, man. You got to be in there day to day, day in, day out. You got to know your staff. You got to know your P&L on a monthly basis, sometimes on a weekly basis. And you can't just sit back idly and cash a check. That just doesn't work.
So one more question here to kind of round us out. So let's talk about some of the economic factors that we're seeing here. Obviously, inflation has been a big deal in the last couple of years. That has certainly impacted a ton of businesses. There's also maybe a little bit more stress in the economy as people are getting squeezed, often due to inflation and just rising costs in general, which means less disposable income. Do you guys see any particular franchise sectors that you think are going to get hit extremely hard due to this? What one sector I would say maybe potentially could have some issues would be some of the stuff like lash techs, for example. I think that a lot of the eyelash franchises are probably starting to struggle a little bit because honestly, it's something you can do at home, right? Putting eyelashes on, they sell them on online on Amazon, I'm sure, or wherever, Sephora, and I'm sure you can just order those to the house, and you can just go ahead and stick them on, the front of your face or whatever. So you can tell I really don't know that what I'm talking about as I kind of stumble through this, but I've never bought a lash from anywhere, but
Just like stick them on or whatever. The heck are you talking about?
You use scotch tape, whatever you use, rubber glue.
Women do like to go and get the lashes put on or have their eyebrows. The other one is the eyebrow thing, right? The eyebrow waxing and stuff.
The threading.
So I think that that's going away more so because like 90% of their units are in malls.
Mm-hmm.
I think the vast majority of them are in malls, and malls are going away. Malls are shutting down left and right.
Amazon warehouses.
Exactly. So I think those franchises that are dependent on malls, and what's the pretzel place? Annie's Pretzels.
Oh,
Auntie Anne's.
Annie Ann's Pretzels.
Yes.
Delicious, but they're going away. Malls are shutting down. The Sbarro's is a QSR there for you, Al, but they put 90% of their locations in malls.
Malls are just changing, man. You can't go and get a pack of Cools and go to the arcade, with my chain wallet, my pack of menthols, just playing the playing the arcade game until my parents quit fighting in the car. Those days are gone. You know what I mean? And
Right.
we got to start looking at the future of franchises, which is pickleball courts. Okay, this is the
Pickleball,
new
yeah.
brave new frontier. Everything has become malls might become pickleball courts. Don't call me Krogstradamus, but I might be trying to predict the future here.
Hey,
Shout
home
out to
healthcare,
pickleball.
home healthcare, home
Home
healthcare
healthcare.
franchises, and that's easy pickings for franchisors.
Yeah.
Easy pickings
Yeah.
because we've got an aging population. The boomers are in their 60s and 70s now, and home healthcare services are going to be massive. I not only think home healthcare services, but I think there's going to be a huge rebound in physical therapy franchises. Where I want to say 30 years ago, there were a ton of physical therapy franchises. They're going to start making a massive resurgence because it's easy pickings. So be on the lookout for anything in healthcare from they've got the big one that just started open up around here, Labs on the Go. Oh, Anytime Labs. Anytime Labs. They're opening up in strip centers everywhere. You can walk in there and say, here, take my blood work and tell me what it is. Your doctor
Another one that I like that I've been seeing is the medical weight loss franchises that have been popping up. I like things that are having to do with health as well. Med spa type of stuff.
Right.
Like I said, weight loss type of stuff. Obviously, I'm invested already in tanning. All that stuff is it goes towards vanity, and I think that there are still some people who are willing to pay for that type of for a look, right? Because as a society, we've gotten more vain over time.
Thanks to social media and being on the internets all the time.
Yes. And the difference between, and I know there's somebody out there saying, but wait a minute, you just said lashes are going to be terrible, and that's also vanity. The difference between what I'm talking about with these other franchises is barrier of entry, right? Like I said, it's very cheap to get eyelashes. Try and buy a tanning bed for your house, and then tell me how much that costs. Because I can tell you how much it costs exactly, and it's a lot.
Me too. I have
And
one
so,
in the living room. No, I'm just kidding.
yes.
I don't.
And same thing with, and things like medical weight loss, where obviously you need a doctor to kind of help you.
$320 a month for trizipatide, I heard. I did it with
Allegedly.
diet and exercise. I don't know. There's a lot of speculation about, how my body transformation journey is certainly was benefited by weight loss drugs early on. And, it is what it is. But I think the in-person consultations do more. I mean, they say I look like an underwater Elton John, and I'm not even really sure what that means, but I know it's a compliment.
Take it.
And on that, we will go ahead and wrap it up here, guys. Thanks for sticking with us on another episode of the BDO Show. And once again, just a reminder, we are going to be at MALC. You're going to get to see us live, ask us questions, get to kick some knowledge. And we will be seeing you on April 15th. So
April 15th.
don't forget to get your tickets to that.
Mid-America Lenders Conference. Let's go.